Let's talk about weight loss. Weight loss, it's simple, right? Isn't it? We all know what we need to do. We need to eat a little bit less and move a little bit more. So then why is it actually so hard? How can you find yourself waking up with really strong intentions, but then you find yourself at 8 p.m. with a glass of wine and sat on a sofa with a bag of crisps? How can you find yourself with an empty biscuit packet and you don't even remember getting it out and starting to eat those biscuits? Why do you feel like you've got no willpower? So successful and sustainable weight loss, it starts with the brain. And our brain, basically, it controls our actions, our habits, our behaviors. So by understanding the brain and the workings of the mind, this will enable you to do the actions that you know that you need to take to achieve your health and your well-being goals, whether that's to lose weight or to manage your weight or just improve your health. So weight loss, it starts with the mind. So let's understand how the brain works and what causes us to overeat when we've already decided that we're not going to overeat. So we'll start with the bit that you know as you. Now, this is the prefrontal cortex. It's the conscious part, the intellectual part, the logical part. The intellectual part of the brain, and it's the part that interacts with the world. It's the part that you're using as you're watching this video now. And we call this part of the brain the intellectual mind. Now, when we're working from this part of the brain, we know what to do for the good of our health, and we follow through and we do it. So the intellectual mind, it doesn't feel the need to snack. It likes healthy food. It makes good choices, especially good choices when you're in the supermarket. It plans ahead. It likes exercise. It copes well with life, and it's great at juggling and prioritizing. So we understand that all food is good for us, and if we eat only what our bodies need, we feel good. And we're able to make choices that place our long-term goals ahead of our short-term gains. So this is the intellectual mind. But there is another part of the brain, and this is known as the primitive brain. So we call this the primitive mind. And it's the original primitive part of the brain. It's the subconscious part. It's part of the limbic system and runs all the autonomic processes in the body. So things like your heart is beating, you are breathing, etc. And it's the emotional part. And its priority is our safety and survival. It does not care about your weight loss goals whatsoever. It doesn't care about your health and your well-being. It just literally cares about keeping you alive. So the primitive mind, it likes snacks, it likes sugar, it likes comfort food, it likes to overeat. And when we're in the primitive mind, we still know deep down what we need to do for our health and our well-being and for our weight loss goals. We know what we need to do, but we struggle to actually do it. So this is why you can have all that knowledge, but you struggle to take the actions that you need to take. And this is how you can wake up in the morning with all those good intentions of being healthy, but after a stressful morning, getting the kids ready, rushing around, getting stuck in traffic on your way to work, turning up to work and you've got hundreds of emails and your boss or your work colleagues, they're upsetting you or annoying you. And then before you know it, it's 11 a.m. and all those good intentions have gone out the window. You're already tucking into your favourite treat and you've already decided you're not going to the gym tonight. You're going to go home, sit, watch Netflix, have a packet of crisps and a glass of wine. So that's primitive mind. So what causes us to move into this primitive mind where we find it hard to achieve our weight management goals? And the short answer is basically stress and anxiety. When our stress and our anxiety goes up, we lose intellectual control and our primitive mind takes over. So if our mind thinks that we're in some kind of danger or that there's an emergency or crisis, or if we're just feeling stressed and overwhelmed, our primitive mind rapidly takes over and it reacts immediately. So when our anxiety goes up, the primitive mind rapidly takes over to protect us, and sometimes it can overreact. And when we're in this primitive mind, that's where we find it hard to do those things we need to do. So the intellectual mind is actually a little bit slower. So the primitive mind steps in very quickly and responds. The intellectual mind is a little bit slower to respond when we're stressed and anxious. So it's important to understand how this primitive part of the mind works so that we can actually stop it overreacting when it doesn't need to, so that we can move into that intellectual part of the brain where we don't feel the need to snack, where we can make those healthy food choices. So a couple of things about the primitive mind. It's a negative mind. It always sees things from the worst possible perspective, and it must do for our own self-preservation. The primitive mind is always on high alert, it's always vigilant. And the primitive mind is not intellectual, and it can't come up with new ideas. It always refers to previous patterns of behaviour. So if what we did yesterday worked and we're still alive and we've survived, then we will do the same thing again and again. So when you're trying to break those habits, those unhealthy habits that aren't helping your weight loss goals, you're stuck in a primitive brain. So this is really important when it comes to weight management. So we repeat previous patterns of behaviour. So that glass of wine, that bar of chocolate, that's why trying to change our habits is hard when we're in that primitive part of the brain and when that primitive mind is in control. So let's have a look now at how anxiety is created and how we move from the intellectual part of the brain where we feel in control and can make those sensible, healthy decisions that align with our weight management goals, and how we then find ourselves in that primitive part of the brain where we feel anxious, we feel stressed, fed up, and that's where we're turning to those sugary, high-fat foods and we're binge eating. So this part of the brain, so we know that this part of the brain likes the snacking, likes big portions, it likes the wine. And it still knows what we should be doing, but we find it really hard to follow through and do those actions we need to do to help lead a healthy, balanced lifestyle. So what is anxiety and stress? Anxiety is caused by negative thinking. And it's not necessarily what is going on around us that makes us anxious. It's the way we think about what is going on around us. And we know that it's our thoughts because if it were reality, then everyone who's in the same situation as you would be having the same problems. And we know that that's not happening. So we can find ourselves sort of reflecting on the past and worrying about the future, beating ourselves up. And when it comes to weight loss, we beat ourselves up when we've eaten that thing that we promised we wouldn't eat, and it becomes a vicious circle. We become more anxious. So we know it's our thought patterns that are causing us to feel this way. And we know that every negative thought we have is actually converted into anxiety. And remember, the mind, it can't tell the difference between imagination and reality. So if we're negatively thinking about something, it's as if it's real and it's as if it's happening now. So the mind, it can't tell if we're thinking about a big problem, a small problem, whether we're thinking about something in the past, something in the future. If it's a problem, then the mind just sees it as a problem right now. And basically our anxiety goes up. It sees everything as a problem and we're in that primitive mind. And that's the part where we don't want to be for our weight loss. So let me give you an example. Imagine that you've got an important meeting to go to. Intellectually, you know this meeting's going to go okay. They usually do. But you start thinking that things will go wrong. And you think about it 50 times. The actual meeting goes quite well. But in your mind, you've actually attended 51 meetings, 50 of which have been awful. And that's the power of your mind. And that's our negative thought patterns. So every negative thought we have is accumulated and it's stored. And we basically say it's stored in a stress bucket. And this is actually the hippocampus, which is the emotional primitive part of the brain. So if we eat something that we've labelled bad, then we see ourselves as bad too. And this also goes into that stress bucket. So this negative thinking just creates guilt that then just carries on filling up that stress bucket even fuller. So you can see now how important managing our stress levels are when it comes to weight management. And I've actually got a free relaxation track to help you basically calm the mind and reduce your stress. So if you click in the link below, have a look in the comments, you can access that audio and listen to that track, and that will really help you manage your stress and anxiety. So let's also, how do we empty the stress bucket? So there's actually a natural way to empty the stress bucket. And this is great because the emptier our stress bucket is, the better we are able to cope with the day ahead, our day-to-day life. So this process, and this natural process, actually happens when we sleep. And it's a special part of our sleep cycle, which is known as rapid eye movement, REM sleep. So when we sleep, we process the events of the day and we change them from being an emotional memory to a narrative memory. So they are moved from the primitive part of the brain and they're moved into the intellectual part, with the emotion completely stripped away from the events. So we have more intellectual control over them, and we basically empty our stress bucket. So this is why sleep is really important. It helps us to empty that stress bucket. But unfortunately, some people, they don't get the right quality of sleep and the right amount of REM sleep. So when I work with my clients, one of the things that I help them with is to actually get their sleep patterns back on track. And the hypnosis part is really powerful. It's a really powerful tool for emptying that stress bucket and helping improve those sleep patterns. So another thing to know is that actually there's a number of studies that now show a direct correlation between poor quality and lack of sleep and weight gain. So it's not just, so sleep can also impact your weight gain. So I help clients to restrict the amount of stress that is actually filling up their bucket. I help them to start focusing on positive thoughts and positive things in life. And I help clients to basically build a metaphorical toolbox that empties their stress bucket. So we focus on avoiding things going in that stress bucket in the first place and emptying that stress bucket. And if we can keep our bucket under control, then we have that intellectual control. And when we're in that intellectual part of the brain, that's when we can make those better decisions and do those actions to help us with our weight management journey. And also, as a hypnotherapist, I have the great advantage of using trance to enhance the therapeutic work with my clients. Now, trance is very ordinary in many ways. All of us go in and out of trance many times a day. When we're concentrating on something, when we're watching the TV, when we're at the gym, when we're out running or driving a regular route, that's trance. So hypnosis and trance is perfectly safe, perfectly natural. So trance is basically when the two minds, the conscious and the subconscious, they come together in focus. And you are then able to access the subconscious mind and that vast intellectual resource, which enables you to get the best out of yourself. So 95% of our actions are driven by the subconscious. So that's why the hypnosis part is really powerful, because we tap into that subconscious. And research has also shown that stress reduction hypnosis is actually the most effective at helping people to lose weight and to keep it off over time than just weight loss hypnosis. So I focus on helping clients to reduce their stress levels, help them improve their sleep, and ultimately help them then in turn improve their weight management. So hopefully now you can see that successful, sustainable weight loss, it isn't about finding a perfect diet or the perfect workout program. It's about understanding how the brain works, getting the brain to collaborate with you. It's about reducing stress, improving your sleep, so that in turn, ultimately, you do the things that you know deep down you need to do to achieve the health and that well-being that you want, to achieve the weight management, weight loss goals that you want to achieve. Now, if you'd like to work with me, I do offer one-to-one sessions, and I also offer group hypnotherapy weight loss classes. So if you'd like to work with me or find out a little bit more, click the link below. Check out in the comments, there'll be a link that will tell you a bit more about the sessions that I offer. So if you think this video is helpful, by all means, like, comment, share. Any questions, ask away, and feel free to share it with any friends, family that you might think would like to listen to this video and will benefit from the video. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.